Judy Lamborn never heard the words, "I love you," from her adoptive mom. Severe discipline robbed her of happiness as a child, and eventually Judy took on another identity as a stripper named Pepper.
Judy Lamborn grew up on a farm in Iowa. Her family appeared normal, but there was a secret.
Imagine if you're a child getting hit with a piece of PVC conduit or a horsewhip. You don't spank your children with horsewhips.
Even though Judy's parents abused her, they made sure she was in church every Sunday. After college, Judy moved to San Diego, where she worked in a bar and soon became a topless dancer.
First night I was up on stage, I made more money than I'd ever seen in my life.
In an effort to stay thin, Judy began taking crystal meth. She eventually moved to Vegas, but her drug habit had become expensive. With the promise of more money, Judy became a prostitute at a brothel. She loved the money, but felt like a part of her was dying inside, until one day when she met someone who would change her life.
Please welcome to the 700 Club, Judy Lamborn. Judy, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
You have an amazing story. How does a young woman from the Midwest become a prostitute?
Well, it doesn't happen overnight. There's seeds of anxiousness and that thought of always being robbed. I always thought that something was being taken from me, and there was more to life than living in a small town in Iowa.
You assumed the identity of Pepper, and you said early on that even your brother called you that. What happened to Judy? How did she get lost in the shuffle of all of that?
Well, the first night I was up on the stage as a dancer, you have to have a stage name, and so they gave me the name Pepper. That night, it's almost like Judy began to disappear. I assumed this whole identity of this bold, courageous, confident person, and it's almost like Judy just took a back step, and no one called me Judy anymore. I mean, it was just a completely different person.
So it's almost like a character created
Yes.
to allow you to be what you didn't feel you
Yes,
were.
and Pepper could do anything. She was invincible. No one could cross her. Pepper was amazing, and I was able to completely just dissolve into that kind of a personality, a whole different person.
What role did drugs play in all of that?
I wanted to be like the other dancers. They were all very thin. And I found out that the reason they were thin was because they were doing crystal methamphetamine.
And not eating and very high all the time. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
So did that play a part in your being able to move further and further into this new identity?
Yeah. Yeah, the moment I tried crystal meth, I was just going to try just a very little bit of it. The very first time I tried it, I was hooked.
I've heard other people say that.
It's true.
It's pretty astonishing.
Yeah.
Nobody starts thinking, I want to get hooked on this.
No, I didn't want to be a drug addict, because the picture that you have in your mind of a drug addict, a lifeless person strung out on the streets, I wasn't going to have anything to do with that. I thought, I'm just going to try it, and that's the deception.
Yeah.
That was the deception that I lived with. When I didn't smoke, I said, well, I'll just smoke a little bit. When I didn't drink, I said, well, I'll just drink a little bit. I can always quit whenever I want. Same way with the drugs. Same way with the prostitution. I thought I was always in control, and that's the deception. That's the addiction.
All addicts, I think, live with that deception themselves, that I can stop this anytime that I want.
That's exactly right.
How did you finally walk away from all of that?
I got so tired of the cigarettes, the drugs, the alcohol, the prostitution. I got so tired of my life. I ended up having to have an abortion. I mean, my whole life, I had become the very thing that I hated, the very bottom of a woman's existence. And when I reached that point, I got so tired of it, I decided that I had to change. I made a decision. And that's when I believe that God intervened in my life and sent me my husband. When I eventually left Las Vegas, my drug dealer drove me to the airport. And I handed her my very last bag of crystal meth. And I said, here, you take this. I'm not going to need it anymore. And God instantly delivered me from that drug addiction. I never went through any rehab. I never went through anything like that. God instantly delivered me from it.
So how did you know that God was the answer to what you were looking for in your life? Not just to being set free from your addictions, but to finding real life, abundant life.
He was the only one who never gave up on me. That was the only, I mean, I had grown up in church. You know, I knew about Jesus.
So you knew the gospel message.
Oh, yes. I loved Jesus all my life and knew about him. I remember laying in the brothel the night before I had the abortion, talking to the Lord. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't feel like I had any choice. I always loved Jesus. And I got to that point where I was like, if you have not left me yet, you know I've taken you some really bad places, but I will give my life to you. if you can do something with it. And he answered me right at that point.
That's such an important thing, because I think you can feel, just as you talked about feeling like you didn't have a choice about the abortion, lots of people when they're addicted feel like they can't get out of it, and even if they could, God would never forgive them. They could never have a new beginning. But you really experienced God's mercy and grace in every level of your life.
Yes, but it wasn't always easy. I mean, I suffered with horrendous guilt and condemnation for years. Before I knew about spiritual warfare, my mind was bombarded with thoughts of, you'll never have a good marriage. Your children, there will be something wrong with your children. You don't deserve to have a baby because you had an abortion.
How did you get free from that? How did you take every thought captive and let God really intervene and heal those areas?
I got in the Word myself. Yeah. I dug into the Word for myself, and I prayed and said, God, please help me. You know, and the Word just exploded, and that revelation came, and it's like the light bulb goes off. It's like, wait a minute, I have a choice over what I think. That thought that's coming in didn't originate from me. It originated from the enemy, and I don't have to entertain it. It's not true. It's a lie.
Judy, you know, one of the things that's so awesome about God, I think, is that he takes our brokenness when we give it to him, and he even makes something meaningful and beautiful out of that. Tell me about the work that you're doing today and how God's using that.
Well, my husband and I live in St. Louis, and we both work for Joyce Meyer Ministries. I work at the Inner City Ministry at the St. Louis Dream Center. Every day we are ministering to the homeless. We're ministering to prostitutes, drug addicts. We have a food pantry that we've fed over 100,000 meals out of last year. We have a wonderful nursing home ministry. We have a fully accredited ministry college there. It is the front lines. It is the gospel every day, you know, just in our little area there.
One of the things he says in his word is that he'll give us beauty for ashes and the oil of joy for mourning. Because of what you went through, because of your own heartbreak, your own loss, your own involvement in things that were ruining and hurting your life, you have, I'm sure, a tenderness and a grace toward people who are broken that you wouldn't have had without that.
Yes, because I can speak from the voice of experience. I can speak out of the pain. I can recognize that and know that.
What do you say to prostitutes when you are able to talk to them today? What's your message to that?
God didn't create you to be a prostitute. He loves you right where you're at, and he has a wonderful plan for your life, and it doesn't involve this. You're better than this, and this wasn't what you were created for. And what God did for me, he stands ready to do for you right now, if you'll just ask him to. You don't have to clean yourself up. You don't have to get all pretty to come before the Lord. He knows exactly what's going on in your life anyway. Just come.
You know, the wonderful thing about that message is it's for all of us. Every one of us needs to know that truth and be set free. Well, Judy has written a book about her life experience. It's called From Vegas to Victory, The Death of a Prostitute. It's an awesome book. It's available wherever books are sold. And we thank you for being so candid and so gracious and sharing the message of God's love with others. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Thanks, Judy.